Most people were taught that debt is the enemy. Avoid it, fear it, pay it off as fast as possible. But here's what nobody told you. The wealthiest people on the planet are carrying millions in debt right now, on purpose, strategically, and sleeping just fine. The difference between debt that destroys you and debt that builds you isn't the amount. It's one decision made at the very beginning, and most people get it completely wrong. This is a summary of how to make loans work in your favor, a nonsense guide to borrowing with intelligence, building real assets, and using the bank's money to grow your own wealth. If you've ever felt behind financially, if debt keeps you up at night, or if you've watched others seem to get ahead while you stay stuck, this breakdown was made for you. But before we get into the framework, there's one belief about money that almost everyone carries, a belief so deeply wired that even smart people fall for it, and it is quietly costing them years of financial progress. We'll get to it shortly. Stay with me. Part 1. The only reason to borrow. Here is the foundational rule, the one that separates people who use debt well from people who get buried by it. Never borrow money for something that loses value. Only borrow money for something that makes money. That's it. That's the whole game. When you borrow to buy a car you don't need, a vacation you can't afford, or clothes that will be out of style in 6 months, you are paying interest on something that is shrinking in value every single day. You are losing money twice, once to the interest rate, once to the depreciation. The bank wins, you lose. But here's where it flips entirely. When you borrow to buy an asset, a rental property, a business, or equipment that increases your output, the math changes completely. The asset can pay the bank back for you. You are using someone else's capital to build your own net worth. The wealthy don't use debt to look rich. They use debt to become rich. This is what's called the investment test. Before signing any loan agreement, ask yourself one question. Will this debt put money into my pocket or will it pull money out? There is no middle ground. If the answer is that it pulls money out, walk away. If the asset generates returns above the cost of borrowing, you may be holding the most powerful financial tool available to anyone. If you've ever felt like you're doing everything right, working hard, paying bills, keeping up, and still feel like you're falling behind, this is likely why. Not laziness, not bad luck, the wrong type of debt, silently draining the future you're working toward. Part 2. The math of leverage. Because this is where the book gets genuinely surprising. Imagine you have $100,000 saved. The cautious approach says buy one property. If that property grows 10% in a year, you've made $10,000, a solid return. Now imagine a different approach. You split that same $100,000 into 5 down payments of $20,000 each. You use the bank's money to control 5 properties, each worth $100,000. Same market, same 10% growth, but now each property gains $10,000. 5 properties, $50,000 total gained. Your return isn't 10% anymore, it's 50% on the same starting capital. The bank doesn't share in that appreciation. The bank only wants its interest payments. Every dollar of growth above that belongs entirely to you. That is the amplifier effect of leverage, and it is completely legal, completely available, and almost completely ignored by people who were taught to fear debt. You don't need to own an asset to benefit from it. You just need to control it. But leverage cuts both ways. If the asset drops in value, your losses are amplified just as fast as the gains. This is why the book is not about borrowing recklessly. It's about borrowing precisely. The asset must generate more income than the debt costs you. That gap, that spread, is your profit. Protect it. Part 3. Borrow only what you can actually repay. Here is where most people make a catastrophic error. They borrow based on what they hope to earn, not on what they currently make. They project. They assume the promotion will come. They assume the business will triple. They assume the market will cooperate. Hope is not a repayment strategy. Before you borrow anything, you need to look at your current income, not future income, not projected income, and calculate whether you can comfortably cover the payments today, not next year, today. If the payment requires your income to increase before you can afford it, you cannot afford the loan. There's also a concept here called over-leveraging, and it's the quiet destroyer of people who did everything else right. Just because a lender approves you for a large amount does not mean you should take all of it. Banks are in the business of lending money. They will offer you the maximum they believe you can carry. Your job is to decide the maximum you should carry, which is almost always significantly less than what's on offer. If you've ever taken a loan and felt immediate weight in your chest, not excitement, but pressure, that feeling is worth listening to. It usually means the number was too high for where you are right now. Just because a bank will give it to you does not mean you should take it. The gap between what's offered and what you accept is your safety margin. That breathing room is what lets you survive a slow month, an unexpected repair, a gap in income without the debt consuming you. Guard that margin like it's your most valuable asset, because it is. Part 4. Good debt, bad debt, and the line between them. Not all debt is created equal. This sounds obvious, but very few people apply it with real precision. Bad debt is any money borrowed to buy something that drains your income. A car loan on a vehicle beyond your needs, credit card balances from dinners eaten months ago, personal loans for vacations that are long over. These are not investments, they are expenses with an interest rate attached. They demand to be fed every month and give nothing back. Good debt is the opposite. Good debt is debt that someone else essentially pays for you. A rental mortgage covered by tenant payments, a business loan repaid by the revenue the equipment generates. In these cases, the asset does the heavy lifting. You structured the deal. The numbers work. The income services the obligation, and there is still margin left over that flows directly to you. Here's the detail most people miss. Good debt also carries tax advantages in most countries. The interest you pay on investment debt is often deductible. You are legally allowed to reduce your taxable income by the cost of borrowing for productive purposes. Meanwhile, bad debt, credit card interest, personal loans, is paid with money you've already been taxed on. Borrowing to get rich is structurally cheaper than borrowing to look rich. Some call that a loophole. Others call it the entire point of the tax code. Part 5. When extra money arrives, do one thing. This is the chapter most people need to hear during a salary increase, a bonus, or any unexpected windfall. Every time your income goes up, the world will try to make your spending go up with it. New car, bigger apartment, better clothes. The lifestyle will inflate to meet the income, and suddenly the raise changes nothing. You are in the same position, just with more expensive problems. The move that actually changes your financial position is this. Every additional dollar of income goes directly toward the principal of your loan, not the minimum payment, the principal. Because paying down principal doesn't just reduce the balance by that amount, it erases all the future interest that would have grown on that dollar for the remaining years of the loan. You are buying your time back from the bank. And here's what people miss about their savings account. If your loan charges 7% interest and your savings account pays 2%, leaving money in savings while carrying that loan is a guaranteed loss every single day. Paying down the loan is the only truly risk-free, guaranteed return available anywhere, equivalent to the interest rate on the debt itself. No market can promise you that. Debt is not a permanent condition unless you treat it like one. Part 6. The traps that look like relief. Refinancing. The word sounds like a solution. Lower monthly payment, slightly better rate. It feels like the bank is doing you a favor. They are not. Here's what refinancing almost always does. It extends the time you remain in debt. It resets the amortization schedule, which means you go back to the beginning where the majority of your payment is interest, not principal. The years of progress you made attacking the actual balance, reset. The bank collects the front-loaded interest from you all over again. Unless the rate drop is significant and the term is not extended, refinancing is usually the bank finding a comfortable way to keep you indebted longer. The lower monthly payment feels like relief. It is a longer sentence dressed up as a gift. There's also the emergency fund rule, and this one must come before any borrowing conversation begins. You should never take on debt without having 3 to 6 months of expenses sitting in a liquid cash account. Not a credit card, not a line of credit the bank can reduce at any time. Cash. Because when life disrupts your income, and it will, the loan still wants its payment. Without a reserve, one disruption becomes a spiral. Emergency expense leads to missed payment, which leads to penalty, which leads to damaged credit, which leads to higher future borrowing costs. The emergency fund is the wall that stops that chain before it starts. Part 7. Budget as your most powerful weapon. Everything in this book collapses without one habit. Not investment knowledge, not credit scores, not leverage ratios. A budget. A budget is not a restriction, it is a command system. It tells every dollar where to go before emotion, impulse, or clever marketing gets to it. When you carry debt, financial ambiguity is not a lifestyle choice. It is a risk you cannot afford. The loan repayment is not a bill you address after everything else is handled. It is the first line, treated with the same gravity as rent or food. It is moved before anything else is considered. This removes the possibility of skipping it, and removing that possibility is the entire point. Track everything. Identify the leaks. Every dollar that disappears into consumption while you carry debt is costing you more than its face value, because it also carries the interest it would have saved you if directed toward the principal. Waste has a compound cost. And when you eliminate the waste, when you cook at home, cancel what you don't use, and delay what can wait, you generate surplus. That surplus becomes ammunition, aimed directly at the loan balance, fired every month without exception. People who think at this level, who want to understand how money actually works before they make the next move, that's who this channel was built for. If this resonated, hit like and subscribe to the Book Blueprint. Every week, we break down the books that actually shift the way you think about money, time, and building something real. The people who watch to the end are already a different kind of person.